Hello, so it's come round to the guitar lesson now, so I thought I'd give you a crash course in bluegrass style guitar playing. This is aimed at people who already play some guitar but maybe haven't looked a great deal at bluegrass yet, and you should. So grab your guitars and let's give this a go. So you're going to need a guitar, ideally an acoustic steel string guitar, and a plectrum, ideally something which is at least 1 millimetre thick and doesn't bend. You don't want to go so thick as the gypsy jazz players do with those ones that, you know, are hugely thick, but just something a little thicker. My pick of choice is this Blue Chip Tad 60. Highly recommend those. So first of all, let's look at pick hold. There are plenty of other styles of guitar that use a plectrum. Bluegrass is particularly fussy. There are different ways that people hold their picks and get great sound and play amazingly. The one that seems to work really well for most people is this one, so that's what I'm going to show you. So if you take your pick in your non-picking hand for now, for me that's my left hand, and you're going to hold out your right hand, or left hand if you're a left-handed player. You're going to hold it out so that your fingers just, let me try and get that in the focus bit, so that your fingers curl in like that, so they just naturally relax into your hand. And what you should find there is there's a little space between your thumb and first finger where you can just put your pick in like that. You'll see that the point of the pick is sticking sort of straight up from my hand if it was hanging down like that. Sorry, there's a point on focus I can see on the screen here. So the point would be going down like that. You don't want too much sticking out, just enough that you can get it into the strings with. Now for bluegrass playing, whether you're playing rhythm or lead, there's a rule that you pretty much always stick to, where if a note is on a downbeat, it's a downstroke, and if it's off the beat, it's an upstroke. So if you're playing a piece that's in 4/4, which most things are, you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, all those notes will be downstrokes, and the ones in between, or the ands, will be upstrokes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. I don't know why we're counting up to 5 and 6, but so you see what I mean. So it's going down, up, down, up, down, up. Even if you miss a beat, so you got down, down, up, 1, 2 and 3, 4 and, or 1 and 3 and 1 and 3, and you got down, up, up. You see my hand keeps going whether there's a note there or not. That's really important. So first of all, let's look at rhythm playing. That's the most important thing you're going to learn. So the chord shapes you use, they might be slightly different from the ones that you're used to if you've not played bluegrass before. The chords we're going to look at are your first 3 most important chords for playing bluegrass: G, C and D. So your bluegrass style G chord. Second finger on the bottom there, 3rd fret. Let that rest across the A string so it's muted. Then open D string, open G string, 3rd finger, 3rd fret on the B string to give you another D, and 4th finger, 3rd fret on the E string to give you a G. What that gives you is a G chord with no thirds, so the B's are all gone. Which means that it's neither major nor minor. It's a power chord effectively, if you're familiar with rock guitar terminology, and it's just a very key stylistic thing of bluegrass rhythm guitar playing, is to get rid of those thirds in your G chord. It's not the other chords, it's just the G chord. C chord. So that's your standard C chord. Open, 3, 2, open. You generally won't want to use this open E string for bluegrass playing. You will want to use it fretted at the 3rd fret there, G. So you can either, when you need to use that note, you can move that 3rd finger across and then back again like that, or you can move the 3rd finger across and leave it and bring in your 4th finger where it was before. So you got that as your C chord. And then your D chord is just as you probably already know it, so ignore that bottom E string and then open, open, 2, 3, 2, like that. So those are your 3 chords we're going to look at. So how to play bluegrass rhythm. So we've got a couple of different positions that your pick is going to be playing in here. The key elements for bluegrass rhythm are the bass note and the strum. And what I find works really well to get your rhythm playing sounding really fluid and not really aggressive. The thing that can happen when people try and learn to play bluegrass rhythm is it can start to sound too much. There's too much pick in the strings, and the guitar's just going all jangly, and it's kind of hard to listen to. But I think that this way of playing rhythm tends to sort that out for most people. So if I was to play lead for bluegrass playing, I would be playing round about here, just at the back of the sound hole there. That's the point that gives you the best projection combined with the sweetest sound. If I move forward, it's a little sweeter, but less, it won't punch through quite as well. And if I move back here, it's plenty of attack, but it's kind of nasally. So here is your lead position. It also will be the place where you're going to play your bass note part of the chord. And when you're in that position, if you have your hand in such a way that your hand sticks straight out from your wrist, so it's not like that, and it's not like that, it's just coming straight out. That is going to be your lead playing position and your position for playing the bass notes of the rhythm. Then the next part of the chord is the actual strum, the chord part of the chord. What works really well, I think, is to lift your wrist slightly. So if that's your lead position or your bass note position, lift your wrist, or effectively just, you lift your whole wrist up and your hand flops back. As soon as you do that, you've suddenly got a lot floppier wrist. There's less control there, definitely less tension if you just try that from that to that. And that's a really good thing, that floppy wrist, so that you can really flick it through the strings. You want to get your hand through those strings for the chord part as quickly as possible, but also lightly. So what that also does is, by lifting your wrist like that, it moves your pick slightly further back along the string. So you move back from here to about there. So it's coming back towards the bridge pins. Now that's, like I said earlier, playing back there gives you a little more punch, which is good. It can also make it sound horrible, but by doing that floppy wrist thing, you end up, rather than playing on the point of your pick, playing on the flat edge of it, like that. So less pick goes through the strings, so you're just kind of gliding across the top of the strings. So you get all that punch without any of that nasty attack sound. Let me just demonstrate. So neither bass note nor strum is overpowering the other. They're both clear and separate. And I'm not playing hard, the guitar is doing all the work for me. Just keep it really nice and relaxed and gentle. But that flick, enabling me to go through really fast, is what sets the top of the guitar going off really well and gives you your punch behind your chord. So when I'm doing that strum, I'm only really hitting the top 3 or 4 strings. When I say top, I'm talking top in terms of pitch rather than where they're actually stacked from the ground up. So it's the D, G, B and E string are your chord strings mostly for this sort of style of rhythm playing. So that's your kind of first thing. Just get that right hand really working, feeling really relaxed, making sure it's relaxed all the way up to your shoulder and all across your back and everything. Check your feet are relaxed, check every part of you is feeling relaxed when you're playing, and just keep checking throughout when you're practicing. And do this slowly with the metronome, gradually build it up. So then what you want to do, so we've got the root as our bass note there, the G of the G chord. The next thing you want to do is to an alternating bass line of root fifth. So we're going to do G, strum, 5, strum. Now the fifth is the 5th note in the scale associated with that chord. So G scale, G, A, B, C, D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 1, 5, D. So practice that alternating bass line. And then you're going to want to do that with the other chords. The C chord, C, G. So you notice I'm using the lowest notes I've got available to me. So on the G chord, the 5 is higher than the one on the C chord, it's lower, which is probably a more natural place for it to sit. And then the Z chord. And that's your basic bluegrass rhythm playing. There are other strokes you can add in, like I was saying before. On the beat is downstroke, off the beat is upstroke. So we've got all downstrokes there, we've got all 4 downstrokes. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a full bar. The next thing you might want to do is add in the upstroke that comes in after the chord part, so the and of 2 and the and of 4. Now when I'm doing that, it will be very light and only the top couple of strings really. And I'm sort of being vague about which strings to hit because it doesn't want to be really precise, it just wants to have a general area that you're aiming for so that it doesn't start to sound really tense and overly purposeful. And when you're doing that, because you're moving from here back to here and then you're coming back again, you're going to hit those sort of roughly in between those 2 points. So sort of front, back, middle. And that's going to be 1, 2 and 3, 4. And so if you're going to start adding this in, go back to just the 1, get that comfortable before going to the 1, strum up 5, strum up 1, strum up 5. So really I'm just hitting it on my way back, that's all. Then the next thing to add in once you're really comfortable with that is to add in the upstroke after the 1 and after the 3. So for that one, I'm going to hit somewhere in the middle of all the strings, so the G, pretty much just the G string to be honest, certainly for the G chord. You kind of don't want too much of the D in this G chord because otherwise you end up effectively getting that D bass note early. So I'm going to go down, up, strum, up. And again, that upstroke is coming in the middle point between those. So. And that's your kind of basic 3 rhythms for bluegrass guitar. And you want to get to the point where you can play all of those all mixed in together. And you can then choose how you want something to feel, whether you want it to be so you can see that combining those, it can make it all sound a lot more interesting without doing anything interesting. So that's kind of as far as I'm going to go in terms of rhythm. There are bass notes and all sorts of things, bass runs and all sorts of things to add in as well. But I think that's probably enough to get going with. Just looking, I'm aware that this is getting long, so I'm just going to look very quickly at playing lead. So lead, the really key thing is what I was saying earlier about that down, up, down on the beat, up, off the beat. If you're trying to work out something and you're struggling to work out where that is, try tapping your foot. Sorry, you can't see here, but I am tapping it. I'll do it a bit more sort of obviously. So you're going to down, up, and imagine that that foot or that knee is attached to your hand. It's like a puppet on a string. So when your foot's going down, your hand's going down, and then if that foot's keeping tapping, and you've got a section where there isn't a note, your hand should be keeping going. It's going to help you know where you are if you're getting stuck. So first thing to do to bear in mind with bluegrass guitar is there are 2 sort of ways that people tend to play. There are a lot of licks that you can learn, as many licks as you like, and you could string together a solo of entirely licks and it would probably it could sound good, it could sound like a total mess, but it can work to do that. But the thing that I think is really important to remember is the melody. So if you're starting out trying to play a bluegrass solo, you want to find the tune first. So I thought we could look very quickly at real classic Flatt and Scruggs song, Blue Ridge Cabin Home. So the melody. So all of that was all downstrokes. That's all. So 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's all falling on the beat there. So there's a lot of space there. Guitar is a quiet instrument compared to some of the other ones, so you kind of have to keep playing, otherwise those notes are going to get lost. So there's a lot of filling to do, particularly if you're playing breaks to songs rather than fiddle tunes. So the first thing to do, once you've found the melody, and I'd recommend finding the melody in as many places as you can, so that's in terms of playing it in that sort of middle octave, down the bottom. We actually can't get that down there, it starts on a D, so we're going to have to miss off that first note. And then again we've lost it, but it's good to sort of try and find where things are down there. Up the neck a bit. If you're finding it up the neck, you might want to find it in different places up the neck. So you're trying to move around a little bit, find that same middle octave melody somewhere else. So so you're really getting used to finding your way around the neck, because you're going to want to be able to move to different places to get different sounds. Once you've found the melody, start to add some little ornaments into it. So the one that I keep wanting to do there is slide into that B there. You generally want to avoid the open B string with playing bluegrass guitar. It generally sounds out of tune. In fact, I would always tend to tune it flat, because otherwise the fretted third fret notes sound out. That's the case with actually top tip there. Tune your E, both E's, and your B strings always so that they're in tune when they're fretted at the third fret. That will give you a much more in tune sounding guitar for playing in most keys for that you'd use in bluegrass. So you want to do some slides. So what I'm doing there is I'm just starting to move into notes like that. Slides and hammer-ons, pull-offs, that kind of thing. So it's still all just melody. Then you're going to want to try and fill some of the gaps. So the first one I would look at is actually getting into the melody. So it's kind of a little bland. So you could do a little run up like that. Or so you're trying to think of different ways in, so start coming from below, start coming from above, and keep experimenting until you find one you're happy with. Then getting from notes to notes, so sorry, it goes da, 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 da. There's not huge gaps there, but so so I'm just starting to add a few more notes from the scale in there, and I'm aware that I'm kind of rushing through this because I don't want to go on forever. It's already 20 minutes. But hopefully you can see what I'm starting to do there, trying to keep the melody in there, just move around a little bit more, add in some upstrokes there. I'm also trying to be aware of the chords, so if I want to add some other notes and some double stops, so that's playing two notes at once, I'm aware that I'm on a G chord, so I'm going to want to use notes from a G chord there. C chord. And then it goes to a D chord and then back to the G. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I think could get into going into that for ages, but the first thing to do is focus on your rhythm, then start learning some tunes, learn the melody, then start to add little bits to it. Learn some licks, you'll start to get into the sort of the way that people tend to put things together that way, and learn as many fiddle tunes as you possibly can. Okay, have a great day.